Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. Um, I figured it'd be fitting if since we're doing all state scales or all state etudes that I start with scales. Of course, some of those scales I played at least for up to 12th grade. Um, some of them are not too octave like I played. And then some of them I need to work on. Um, need to work on my 2 octave sharp scales especially and D flat. So I'll do that. I'll do that over the course of the next week or so. Work on getting those back up to speed. I guess I should. I mean, I work on my scales, but I guess yeah, whatever. But anyways, welcome to the stream. Today we'll be going through every single Georgia All-State Etude for this year, which is 2023. If you're watching this from the future, um, but yeah, uh, so we're just gonna hop into it. Actually, first, before we started, I just wanted to give just a couple of general tips for just preparing etudes in general, and just thinking about the audition. Um, yeah. So, first of all, I think a really big piece of advice is that when you're in the audition, you just gotta go for it. Like, you gotta show up and just be like, I got this. This etude is mine. um, and just go for it. I mean, it's pretty simple, but I mean, I guess an execution is hard, right? Because there's always nerves when you're playing for an audience that's slightly unfamiliar to you. Um, so that always happens, but really just try to think about that. Get that kind of ingrained in your head. I know a while ago, like a good couple years ago, Dave Zirkle, Dr. Dave Zirkle, who was formerly the professor to euphonium at University of Georgia, but now, of course, is at the University of Michigan. I think that's the one he's at. He's at one of the big Michigan schools. I think it's University of Michigan. Um, but he came to my school at my undergrad for a master class at the time, and he talked about it. And his big thing was just this acronym called IFOT, um, which basically means I own this, with the extra added. I mean, you can kind of imagine I own this, and then if the acronym was IFOT, you can kind of imagine what that extra letter is. But I think it's a really good way of thinking. Just thinking, I got this. This is mine. I know that's kind of partially what made me kind of do this stream. I was not the best about advertising this. I kind of decided last night to do this just because I've been putting off recording the etude. So I thought, I'm just going to stream it and record it within the stream. Just kind of force myself to do it. And I think that's sometimes you kind of have to do that for yourself. So I know for me at least, one of my biggest skills is procrastination, which is less of a good thing and more of a not so good thing, In certain circumstances, it's okay, but general, But anyways, so that's why I'm doing this today. And if you're watching it somewhat around this time, that's why I didn't really give too much notice of it. And I was just kind of like doing this. I'm just gonna get it over with. So yeah. But yeah, just go in there and you own it. And then about breath marks, make sure your breaths are in time. It's okay if you add a little bit of time to the etudes, but you have to make sure it's intentional and not just accidental. Where you're kind of taking an extended break. So the breaths, try your best to make them in time. So just think something like 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's in time, right? So that's what the kind of breaths you want to take. So always keep that in mind. Like I said, if you add just a small little appropriate pause, it's okay. But generally, you want to try to keep the flow going. Because you have to think, even though, yes, you won't be playing these etudes with a accompaniment, most likely. I don't foresee that ever happening. Maybe that will, I don't know. But these etudes in particular don't have accompaniment that you will play for the audition. So you don't have to worry about playing with people, but even so, you need to be able to demonstrate that you can keep time so that when you play in an ensemble, you're keeping time. Because, of course, I mean, especially in tuba section, right? Besides the percussion, we are the force that moves the band. Sometimes. So we have to make sure we can be in time and let our auditioneers, the audition people, know that we can do that. So try to keep breath in time, but if you add a little bit of time, I think it's somewhat okay. And let me think. Yeah, and then with the legato, because all the lyrical ones, we have lots of legato, like slurs, right? These big long slurs. It's okay if you tongue a little bit inside of the slur. Just make sure it's like lighter tongue and you're not really heavy. So I know there's one etude that I keep on tonguing in the middle of it, but it's not like something where it's like, ta, but it's something that's more like, I don't know. You'll hear it. It's in the, I think it's in the, which one is it? The symphonic band lyrical. There's one place where I kind of conditioned myself to tongue it, or I don't know. But anyways, and also, and on topic of breath marks, because this reminded me of it. I don't think you necessarily have to take every single breath mark. If you can make it all the way without it sounding strained at the end of a phrase, go for it. But if you can't, then take the breaths. So just keep that in mind. If you feel like you can make it all the way through a phrase very comfortably, then do it. But if not, try to take the breath. Just take the breath. I know you'll see that from me occasionally. Is that sometimes I'll try to go through a whole like slurred line and I won't take the breath mark that's in the middle of the line. But then other times I will take that breath mark that's indicated there. Yeah. And then, of course, with technical etudes, I do kind of recommend writing in breath marks. It might seem kind of, maybe not stupid, but unnecessary because technical, we're not really as concerned about lyricism or making our breath last longer. But I know for me, it's helped me kind of learn them. I only wrote it breath marks in the first etude, but still, it's kind of, whenever I use them, I feel like I can make it all the way through the phrase a lot easier because I've marked, breathe here. So, yeah, even the technical ones, mark in your breaths. Let me think of if I have any other general ideas before we get in. And I'll give a little bit of tips after every single one and kind of share some of my experience in learning these. But yeah, because I think 2 or 3 of these I've worked on the original version of in the past. I know the 5/4 symphonic band technical one I worked on. And I think the first one I've definitely played at least once or twice, maybe a lot more, because that's one of the early ones in Bordoni. And then I think the Symphonic Band Lyrical is, or not, yeah, Symphonic Band Lyrical is one I haven't really looked at until this semester, which has been fun to learn, as I'm sure the rest of you who are learning that as well are having fun with that too. Yeah, but it's fine. Anyways, I'm just going to get to it, and any thoughts I have, I'm just going to share after each etude. But feel free to skip around, because I'll try to make separate videos, but in case I don't, there will be timestamps at the end, or there will be timestamps in the description below, or I might make it the top comment. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you for coming by and listening to my etudes. Oh, and one more thing, just to give you an idea of what's going to be happening. I'm limiting myself to 2 tries for each etude. So some of these I might do in one take, which would be awesome. But I'll probably more often than not take the second take, just to see. And then afterwards I might say, I like the first take, or I thought the second take was better. But that's just what's going to happen. So if there aren't any questions or comments, I'm just going to go ahead and get started with the first one. Let me get it up on my computer here. Do that. So that's why I was like, I'm like over here. Not centered, because that might have been bothering some of you. I just realized. But yeah, starting with the middle school lyrical etude, we're just going to start from the bottom and work our way up to the top level. Yeah, I figure that's the best way, as opposed to me like doing some randomizer where I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to do the symphonic band thing now, and then that one later. And no, we're just going to go out with a bang with the symphonic band etudes, because those are quite fun, interesting. But yeah, let's get into it. Here's the GMEA. I guess I forgot, I should have put GMEA, not GA, but it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But yeah, GMEA 2023 to 2024 middle school lyrical etude. Still some somewhere, but there we go. Hold on. No, sorry. I thought that was pretty good, but I might have to give that one more try, because I'm always on the slow side with these. So I just need to double check the tempo on that. 90. Oh. Let's try it one more time. Yeah. So there we go. That second one was definitely it. I was definitely a bit slow on that first one. Another big recommendation I have, just in general, practice with the metronome. Even for the lyrical ones. I know I have a tendency to more often than not practice lyrical type etudes without a metronome. But it is still important to make sure you're doing that so you're keeping on time. Because I know for me at least, I don't know how you are, but I tend to kind of err on the slower side for some reason. Just my mentality, I guess. Maybe you might be on the fast side where you're like wanting to be like, da, like trying to go march tempo or something on this. So make sure you play with the metronome. I will say, playing it at that faster speed for me helped me to be able to move through the phrase. Because I know that last phrase, especially, like leading up to that. Let me get that up so I can point. Leading up to this breath mark here, at slower speeds, I cannot make it through to here comfortably without taking a breath here. So I took a breath the first time. The second time I didn't because I felt pretty comfortable with my breath. But this is the breath mark I highly recommend. If you do only one breath mark out of the ones that are written here, except this one you should most definitely do, too. If you do, besides this one, if you were to only do one of these ones that are in the middle of phrases, this one is the one. This is the one to do. This is a massive phrase. I mean, I guess it's about the same length as the others, right? But for me, at least, getting to here, especially since it's a crescendo, right? Oops. I struggle to get all the way through this phrase. Yeah, and I probably could do more with the crescendo here at the end, but yeah, just make this a gradual crescendo. Don't get too loud, too fast. Pace it out so that when you get to this final C, it's there, right? And I would say think it's just forte, so you no need to overblow there. Just comfortable forte, comfortably loud. Yeah, and just always think trip the 16th here, right? Ta 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 ta. Ta da 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 ta 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 ta. Make sure that is really precise. I know that's the thing I would listen for if I was to judge this. Yeah, and this word, this is a pretty troublesome phrase, espressando. Just means you can do whatever you like with these in terms of adding dynamics. I would recommend, just as a basis, just think flow outwards and come backwards. So like do, maybe something like that. I mean, you could do whatever you want. You could make it so it goes halfway through and then it goes back down, or maybe like do it every other measure. So it's like do. I don't know. It's really up to you. Whatever you do, make it intentional. That's the biggest thing about espressando. Expressiveness, we could go into a whole thing about expressiveness, but baseline, focus more on changing dynamics as opposed to changing tempo. Okay? If you have any questions about this, please leave them below or comment here. and I'll try to get back to your comments as soon as I can. But let's keep moving. Technical etude. This one's about the same tempo, which is pretty good, just a tiny bit faster. Yeah, I was right on it. Yeah, and metronomes are your friend. Yeah, that's it. So a couple things to look out with this one. Like I said, this is the one I wrote the breaths in. Because it just helps pace. Because thinking about breathing, this is a no-no. Try not to breathe after sharps. Just because generally sharps tend to lead towards the next note. I mean, even this one is kind of leading towards here. Da, 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 da. Or actually, no, what this sharp is doing, it's leading towards this G. So we especially don't want to breathe anywhere in here. Because all these, this is kind of just neighboring motion, right? Because this one's going down to the G, and this one's coming up to the G. So, kind of complex music theory stuff, but not complex, but you know, it's somewhere up there in the complexity charts. But basis, A is leading down towards the G, F sharp is leading up towards the G. So breathing after the G is the best course of action there. And of course here is a good place too, I think. Just because we have lots of space here, so breathe. Because even in technical etudes, there is some lyricism. Because actually, if you really want to think about it, lyricism is kind of a subset of technical playing. In a way. It's just that we're, instead of thinking about like all of the, like we're slurring and trying to move our notes across, here we're thinking more about the style, I think. So, but even so, we still need to make sure these kind of like things that are establishing the key and whatnot are heard. So these are the breath marks I recommend. And these two breath marks here, you can take one or both or the other, I think would be probably okay. Just where I would breathe. I mean, you heard me take both of them in that take. And I thought that take was pretty good. There's little things that I could probably improve on if I did another take, but for now, but I think that's good enough. To hopefully show some of the things. Oh, and with this, the thing I think about with these marcato tenuto, I forgot the actual name for these, for this note, but we're gonna call it marcato tenuto, accent tenuto. Basically, think like an accent, but keep each note moving towards the next note. Okay? So, just like I did, I was like, ta, 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 ta. So we're always, notes are moving to the next one, but we're getting big emphasis on the beginning of each note. So just think about that. And of course with the tenuto legato notes here and here, just connect them. To. And then passante just means heavy, so just be really strong. Ta, 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 ta. Think like really rigid and firm. Yeah, but yeah, that's the middle school etudes. But let's keep it rolling. We're going to move on to concert band, which is 10th through 11th grade. And this is our etude for that. Let's zoom out just a tiny bit. Maybe we can get it to fit. Let's see, control this. they're not in between 100. Let's see if we can do 90%. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Looks good to me. Now we can see that it's the consummate and lyrical etude. But yeah, let's go for it. And like I said, tempo is everything. This one goes a little bit faster, so you want to really make sure that you're in the tempo. It's tricky at tempo. I know I've struggled with, well, two things. This measure and this measure. But we'll talk about it. This one I might have to do 2 takes for, because I know both of those measures I struggle with. So we'll see how it goes. Da, 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 dee, da. And that's just another small tip. Before you start, take your time. Don't just rush into it without thinking. Take some time when you're in the audition to think about what you want to do. Think about what you've practiced, what you've heard, and keep that in your head. And take a second to at least think about those first 2 measures in the tempo. So don't just sit down, play your scales. And I think chromatic comes after scales, all the major scales that are listed up here. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've done a all-state thing, but I think that's right. And then take a couple of seconds. I'm losing frames. Hold up. I was afraid this was a me issue. Hold on a second. Get out of here. Okay. Oh. Okay. Hold up a second. I don't know why it's buffering. Technical difficulties. I've got to reset this in just a second. Properties. This thing. Vertically. Figure video. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Okay, cool. I don't know why I'm dropping frames. What is going on? Is it still? Yeah, I'm still dropping lots of frames. Yup. Why am I dropping frames? I shouldn't be dropping frames. Okay, maybe that's better. Nope, I'm still buffering. I don't know why I'm dropping frames. Yeah, this sucks. Apply. Okay. Okay, let's do. Livestream. Output video. Output. Let's move it down to that. Okay. I think I'm back. Okay. Cool. Sorry about that. Somehow my connection went down. I don't know why, and I was dropping lots and lots of frames, but I think we're good now. Gosh. Okay. Sorry. We're doing concert band etude. Here's the concert band etude, GMEA 2023-2024. Here we go. Yeah, this is definitely one I'm going to use a second try card. This one is, I don't know if deceptive is the right word, because it looks kind of complicated just from looking at it, but it is very complicated. Some recommendations I have: just keep the tempo going. And for, what is that, measure 5, 6, 7? Measure 7. Ignore that octave skip for a second and just do da da in the range, da da dee da da, instead of da da dee da da da. And just doing that octave skip. I mean, of course, when you're playing it for the audition, you want to play it like that. But on your own, feel free to kind of practice some at first without that, just to get used to moving from D up to E, and then practice some going from that D down to that, up to that upper E, that ninth interval. But I would spend some time working on some octaves, because of course we have the D octave shows up 2 times. Yeah, 2 times. And then of course we have another big octave interval at the second to last measure, right? And I think this is the measure I truly struggled with, for at least for this etude. I don't know how this compares to the next lyrical etude, but I struggle with that one a lot. But I think my biggest recommendation for that last line is keep that first dynamic in mind. That piano right here. Keep that in mind. I think if you stay at that piano, that will help you to move through all of that in one breath, because that was my struggle. I was going to recommend, if you can't, I would still recommend breathing like somewhere in between, like here. I think here is probably the best place in between those 2 notes, the F, the low F to the high E, not the high E, but the middle E. It's probably the best place to breathe if you have to take a breath there. But keep in mind what I said earlier about breaths. You have to keep it in time. Da 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 da. So you have to do something like that, but make sure you take in plenty of air so that you're not exhausted and stuff, But yeah, I'm going to give this one more try because that first take was pretty rough. But yeah, let's try it one more time. I'm just going to take a second to empty spit and stuff. But yeah, and if you, like I keep on saying, if you have any questions, leave them below if you're watching this from the future. Or if you're watching this right now, feel free to comment if you have questions about any of these etudes, regardless of if that's the one I'm focusing on right now. Okay. Here's my second and final take of the 2023-2024 Concert Lyrical Etude. Here we go. Actually, yeah, no chat. Okay. Drop some of those toppies, but I feel like that was a bit better. But the biggest thing with this one, I think, is all about airflow. Keep that air moving. If you're not comfortable with keeping your air moving, do some etudes. You might want to look into do some longer etudes. If you have the extra money, a book I recommend is the Pylon Lip Flexibility book. Get it in bass clef or treble clef. I only have a treble clef version just because I thought it would help me kind of separate my looking on a paper from my mind, because it's basically the same. Trumpets or anyone who reads in treble clef, except for horns have different partial, but trumpets have the same partial series that we in the tuba do. So it doesn't really matter. But just do some longer lip slurs. Like some of these lip slurs are like probably like 8 measures long on just one fingering. I might make just a short video playing a couple of them. But those are great for airflow. So, because that's the biggest thing with this one and any lyrical etudes, but this one especially. Just keep that air moving forward. But yeah, there was something else that came up. Oh, you're really precise. Once again, precise with the dotted 8th, 16ths. But anyways, let's keep it moving. Now we're going to do the technical etude for concert band. Okay. And yeah, this one's 5/4. So make sure you're right on it with that tempo, with that time signature. What I recommend is try to find a metronome that can do 5 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it types it so that you know you're landing on beat 1 on the measures. I know this is one I played the original version of, and I had trouble with it a little bit because I kept on playing in 4. So make sure you're really counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Da 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 da. Ta 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 ta. Da, 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 dee, da, da, da. Yeah, it's tricky. Now I'm doubting myself, but this will be fine. So, here we go. Technical Etude, Concert Band 23. That was somewhat a waste of a first try because I didn't realize that I was missing a whole line of music. So make sure if you have a piece of paper, you should have your whole music. But if you're reading from a tablet or something, make sure all of it is displayed in one frame before you start. Yeah. Which if you have a decent sized tablet, it's fine. But I know me, I just have a half-sized tablet. Of course, I'm doing this through my computer, so I just didn't adjust it. But, just make sure you can see all of the music. Here's my second try. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, like I said, count, and then count some more, and you'll be great. This one, make sure you circle all the accidentals, right? Measure 6, remember, accidentals carry across. So both of those Fs are F sharps. Yes, they are. So make sure if you keep on playing an F on the F natural on that second F, make sure you circle it or write another sharp in. And circle sharps. If your sharps confuse you and you're like, oh gosh, what's the fingering? Just write the fingering in. I think it's okay. I'm not fully versed on the rules off the top of my head, but they aren't going to look at your paper, I don't think. I don't think they do that, unless they've changed that recently. So write whatever you want. If you keep on missing that F sharp, just write in 2 and 3. If you're on a B, assuming you're in a B flat tuba. Yeah, and for the B naturals, hopefully you're comfortable with B flat, B natural. But if not, 1 and 2, right? Yeah. And if you're not comfortable with B natural, play your C scale. I recommend doing a modal pattern on that C scale, which just start on the each scale degree. Keep inside of that same key. So like you'll do D with the key of C, or C major, I should say. Then E in the key of C major, and so on and so forth. play those scales. Get comfortable with B natural. Outside of bandland, B natural is a lot more common. I mean, if you think about a piano, right, it has white keys, which are all natural. So yeah, be comfortable with C and B natural. Anyways, yeah, just count. I think that's the really big thing here, is just count. It's pretty straightforward. It's just straight eighth notes. We've got some dotted rhythms, right? Dotted quarters mostly, or for the entirety. Or we have a dotted half note at the end. But make sure you count. Ta 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 2, 3, 1. Right? Yeah. So make sure you think about it in your head. I think I did that right the last time I played it, but I'm doubting myself now and thinking about it. But yeah, just count like mad. The marcato, because that's the marcato, right? Rooftop accent is marcato. I sometimes get these symbols confused. So this and this are very similar, right? But the rooftop accents mixed with the mixed with the tenuto. The thing I would think is just think ta 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 ta. So just give each note a little bit more energy than you normally would, right? And I think something that might help with giving it more energy is really, this is the time to really emphasize this crescendo. Like maybe here, up until this D, you can kind of ignore the crescendo. And then here is where you start building into the crescendo and use these to drive the crescendo. I think that would help. That's at least what I do personally, but I mean, you can do what you want. But yeah, I think that's the main couple things. This one's fairly simple. Of course, just make sure your accidentals, you're circling the accidentals. Keep on missing some of them. Don't be afraid to mark in fingerings. It's okay to write in fingerings sometimes. I know I do it occasionally on my own music when I'm practicing in ensembles or solos, etc., etc. So just make sure you're playing that right, because that's the important thing. So you're playing it right, because otherwise it's not as great. But anyways, let's keep moving. 2 more etudes left. We have the lyrical. And like I've kind of alluded at, this one is the one I think I struggled with the most. Sure, that ending of the concert band lyrical is pretty rough, not gonna lie. But these two measures are really tough. We got was that just a C minor arpeggio, right? Yeah, C minor arpeggio. And this measure right here, C, E flat, G, da 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 da, dee da dee da da da. My biggest suggestion with these, especially goes to this measure. I recommend trying to differentiate these two notes, play them with different fingerings. It might be weird, especially since that would make the C. And I would say if you're gonna play the C with that higher C with a different fingering, play it with 1 and 3, regardless of whether you have 4 valves or not. That way you can kind of switch between those a little bit easier. Otherwise, this adds more different thing. But your choice, really. I like to kind of make sure I'm playing with different fingerings through these two measures for the slurs, just so you don't get as, because with the pure slur, like if you're just going like, it's fine, but in faster tempos, if you're not careful, it can sound a little bit weird. So I like to kind of change fingerings, even if that's going from 1 and 3 to 1, because that's gonna change the sound a little bit. That might make it a little bit easier. Yeah, but I don't do a whole lot of that, I will admit. because I'll admit I probably could use some more time practicing on this, but we're just going to go for it. I think the times I've played it, I would say like 90% of the time, been more satisfied with what I played in these measures. So I'm pretty confident that it'll be fine. And always, don't forget, if you have any questions about these, if there's something that I gloss over that you're like, hey, can you talk more about this? Please let me know in the comments. I'm kind of just going on autopilot, to be honest. I'm just going. So yeah, just let me know what you think. If you have any questions or comments or anything, please, I'd love to know. And I'd love to help you. If you're having a specific trouble with this specific thing, let me know. Yeah, and of course, key is pretty standard. I mean, the time signature is not as standard. Well, it's somewhat standard. 6/8, you'll see that pretty often. Yeah, and this raw entendo, I don't know. We'll play it, and I might talk a little bit more, but I've already talked about this a lot, so I feel like we can just play and move on to the last one, and we can be done with the stream. Yeah, so let's go. I'm gonna quickly go over here and set my tempo. And one last thing with the tempo. Obviously, 48 is not a fast tempo. I highly recommend playing with the subdivision. So think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Keep that going through your head. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. And the other thing, breathing in this, the only breath you're going to get is at the end of each of these phrases. So like here's a breath, here's a breath, here's a breath mark here. And what I do personally here, I just add a little bit of a pause. I think it's okay. Just don't like take like a whole minute there. Just kind of something light. That might have been too much, but just something really small. Just something small like that, I think is okay. Others might disagree, but I will say, where else are you supposed to breathe? I mean, I guess you can breathe, take some time in the rallentando to breathe, but I don't know. Your choice. Let me know in the comments down below if you're a band director watching this. What's your opinion? Do you think it's okay to add in a small space here, or should we try to kind of use this rallentando to kind of add a breath somewhere in here after maybe after one of these octave shifts in here? I don't know. Let me know. I'm curious to know what you think. Or if you're someone who's learning this, what are you doing? What are you doing with your breaths here? Because I'll be honest, I didn't even think about using the rallentando until right now. But I think, like I said, I think it's okay to add a break here. Yeah. Here we go. I'm gonna give this one more try, just to try to do what I originally do. Because just from trying to breathe inside of that rallentando measure, The only issue I have with it personally is that I didn't have enough air to last to the end. But I think with more practice on it, I might be able to make that work. And maybe with this crescendo and decrescendo and those the odd tempo 2 measures, don't go too big on that. Just go swell a tiny bit and come back down. And think more, kind of like you're going more from pianissimo to piano. Or maybe mezzo piano at the latest. But, I mean, if you want to, like, really, really drag that, you can. I mean, not drag it, but really, really push that dynamic higher, you can. But pace yourself. I think it's better to take more breaths. Of course, you don't want to invert the phrase, but take more breaths and keep the phrase moving, as opposed to having the phrase end like it just did with me at measure 10, where I was kind of like da 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 da, and you didn't hear that last note. So it was kind of like, what happened? But let's try it one more time, and then we'll move on to the final etude, the symphonic band technical etude. Here we go. Yeah, that run, at least to me, felt a lot better. It's because I was able to move through that. And I think I even did a little bit better on 5 and 6, those troublesome measures, which I would say focus on those measures. Because the beginning and the end parts are the same. Those first 4 measures and the last 4 measures are the same. Well, I guess except that there's no crescendo, decrescendo in the first 2 measures, right? But other than that, they're the same. Yeah. So if you practice one set, focus on that, and then once you feel like you're comfortable with those first 4 measures, focus on those next 4 measures a lot. Because those are the big measures that they're going to be listening for. I would listen to those very intently, especially 5 and 6, to see if you accurately played through those measures. Because I probably could, like I said, I could probably still improve on those measures more. And especially if I get into the right fingering pattern, I think that would help. So establish a fingering pattern that works for you, and makes it effective and sounds good as soon as you can, and get used to it and stick with it. Yeah. But yeah, that's my advice on the lyrical etude. So let's move on to the last one, the technical, which does has its complexions, but I at least didn't have as much trouble with this one. But that might be me. Just too skilled, right? There we go. Okay, so yeah, this is the technical etude. Biggest thing to think about, especially with those last line, that's the troublesome line, is that whole last line starting from 13. The rest of it, just make sure you're aware of where the syncopations are. Is it 8th quarter or 8th quarter 8th? Because it switches between those two, I've noticed. Because the first measure, we have eighth, quarter, quarter, eighth, triplet, and then the next measure is eighth, quarter, eighth, right? So make sure you're differentiating between those, and you're being very aware, because if you're not careful, you could easily play these sounding kind of the same. So make sure you're differentiating the eighth, quarter, quarter, and eighth, quarter, eighth, because those are the main two syncopations we see here. Yeah, here we go. Oh, and beware of accidentals. Yeah, sharps. Sharps are good. Sharps are fun. We're going to do one more try. Pretty good overall, I thought, but definitely some things I can improve on. My brain had a miniature meltdown in the beginning, which is why it was kind of slightly more awkward and it wasn't as connected. So let's do one more try, and I'll nail it this time. I lied. We're going to try that. We're going to do one last take. Yeah, so just be aware of fingerings in there. And I probably should have clarified this, but don't use my fingerings. It will not help you. You will be playing in the complete wrong key. Yeah. I'm going to practice that last line just once, and then we're going to do one last try, and then that'll be it for the stream. I might give a couple last closing remarks, but yeah. Here we go. And just make sure you're looking ahead. I think that's a big thing to think about with these. You have to be looking forward. Think forward motion. And always look ahead. Because I think that's 90% of why I miss notes, because I'm not looking at the next note. So just make sure you're keeping your eyes moving, and don't just be like, there's triplet, and stick on that triplet. So you got to be aware of what notes are in that triplet, right? Basically B flat. That last triplet, or not last, but that second measure in there is especially tricky. Be very aware of which notes those are, right? A sharp, G sharp, A sharp, which in layman's terms is B flat, A flat, B flat, right? If we're to think in flats. So here we go. one last full run, and I'll give a couple remarks. I have to clarify one thing. Which measure was that I messed up? Was it 7? Oh gosh, I can't remember which measure it was I messed up. It was 7, 7 or 11, I think. 7-11. Hey. 7 or 11, or some other measure. I'll go back and review and let you know which measure it is that I missed. But there's one measure where I play different notes. I'm not going to replay it because I said I would do 2 takes for each, but I actually did 3 takes for that last one. So I'm sorry about that, but just, I mean, it's a lesson in don't copy everything you hear, right? So let's just talk for a minute. And I don't know if you'll tune into this later or if whoever is tuning in now will stay for this, but just wanted to provide a last couple just comments from me. Oops, that was the wrong thing. This a little bit more in the center. There you go. Just the last few comments from me about learning these etudes and such. Thank you. First of all, just thank you if you stayed, if you tuned in live, or if in the future you came by to look at this video. I appreciate it a lot. But I want to say, make sure you're learning it for yourself and you're not just relying on other people's playing of this. So do use this as a guiding post, but make sure you're aware and learning it properly and you're not just learning it by ear completely. Because like I said with that last one, I screwed up one measure in that one take. And I'm not going to do another take. I could. I have the time probably, but I'm not going to. I learned myself to 2, and I broke it with that last one. So it's okay to go past what you say, but do make sure you stick with what you do. Because, I mean, here's the thing. Even if you make play wrong notes like that, but if you play it wrong and keep moving forward, that will be more of a plus on your record than if you were to just say, oh, I played a wrong note and just stop completely in the middle of that. Because that will be more of a, ooh, sorry. Because think about this. You're playing in an ensemble. Because I assume, not all of you, because I assume there's probably some of you who have never played in an ensemble before, which is perfectly fine. But if you played in an ensemble, you know this. You can't ever stop in the middle of a concert, right? I mean, you can. Sometimes there are occasions where the conductor is like, okay, let's regroup. But I would say those are more rare than they should be more rare. If you're having to do that constantly, then you should probably adjust something. Just light little friendly advice. But yeah, just be mindful of how you practice and what you play. Okay? And just convince the audience, the biggest thing, like I said at the beginning, you own this. You got it. You will do this. You will do great. You just have to convince yourself, I got this, and go for it. Because if you go for it and you make like a couple of mistakes, hey, that's fine. But if you go for it, you make a mistake, and you immediately stop for the mistake, oh, not so much. So we can't do that. We don't have the liberty of doing that in the middle of a concert. I mean, regardless of whether you're playing in concert band or in like a rock band, right? You can't just stop because you made a small little mistake. Gotta keep moving forward. That's the most important thing, just in general for life. But, anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you were here live, and thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this from the future, I appreciate the support. And until next time, have a great day. Bye.